Are you ready, son?
I'm ready.
Hello. Welcome to Hard Compound, an American take on Formula One. We are back, Season 2. We just finished watching Bahrain Grand Prix 2022. That was a fun one. No one expected that. I think, start up. I think maybe a lot of folks expected the podium, Ferrari, Mercedes, but how we got there in the final two laps, I don't think anyone, Christian Horner in particular, was expecting that. Son, can you give me your 3-word breakdown of Bahrain 2022?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it was pretty crazy, especially there at the end. Red Bull having some reliability issues. My 3 words are really exciting for me, and maybe for a lot of people listening to this, they won't agree with this, but my 3 words are points for Haas. I mean, who would have thought? What an insane thing to happen. I mean, of all the teams coming into this season, nobody would have expected Haas to start out the first race of the season on the front foot, top 5 finish. I mean, incredible. From, all the bad performances last season, they were basically 19 and 20 every single race. Then you have all the craziness with the Russian sponsorships and whatnot happening very recently. So it's very chaotic start to the season. A lot of, tumultuous sort of things happening with Haas. And Kevin Magnussen comes in and looks like he hasn't lost a beat, goes out there, Q3 in qualifying, just an awesome job. Mick Schumacher, same thing. I mean, he looks happy and excited to be in that car, and he's competing with, some of the best drivers on the grid. Just for me, that's the biggest story this week. I know I'm biased towards the American team, sure, but that was incredible for me.
Yeah, somehow the wily American Gene Haas and the wily Guenther Steiner somehow swindled the Mazepin oligarch out of millions to sort of fund the development of the 2022 Haas car, booted Nikita Mazepin out, brought in Kevin Magnussen. That was amazing. 10 points. I mean, and hey, Grosjean's lighting it up. He's doing well in Indy. The Haas had a good team. They just had a terrible car, and now their car isn't terrible. Is it reliable? We'll know. This is going to be a historically long season, but that should be fun. For me, I think the 3 words, I think better than 2021. That's for me. I know this is presumptuous, but the 2021 season was amazing. Max Lewis battled all season long. Mercedes Red Bull battled all season long. We got a dramatic one final lap, final race shootout for a victory. I don't think most people think 2022 can top that, but I think with the new regulations, the new parity overtakes, seeing Ferrari back, as Carlos Sainz says, and I don't think this is a one-off. I think 2022 could be a better season than 2021.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And I'm definitely excited by this weekend for the rest of the season. It looks like it'll shape up to be a really good one. We'll have 3 teams, seems like, battling for the top spot. And, further down, you still have pretty much every team save for maybe Aston and Williams, as long as McLaren can get their act together, battling for points every single week. That's pretty cool to see.
I'm not sure McLaren will. We always talk up the American Zach Brown. I mean, McLaren 2014, 2015, one of the worst cars maybe in the history of F1. Zach Brown came in, he turned it around, he brought in a lot of sponsor money, he brought in a lot of new people. I wonder if he's spending too much of his time focused on bringing in all the big money because in testing and in Bahrain, McLaren has not looked good. Neither of the drivers have looked good. They've not said anything positive. I'm not so sure McLaren is set to return to third or fourth this year. We'll see. But based on this one race, I think back of the middle is the very best we might want to hope for.
Yeah, that's pretty disappointing weekend from McLaren. They looked okay in preseason testing, but yeah, this weekend was really tough for them, and they seem to have all kinds of issues. Ricardo, in particular, seemed to have all kinds of issues with that car. I don't know. I hope that they get up there and compete, but you're right. From just this weekend, it looks like the best they can do is compete for maybe 10th.
Yeah, I saw in the interview Max had after the race, very disappointing race. He was very gracious to Charles Leclerc. Max doesn't play well in front of the camera, but he is perfect for Red Bull. He loves to boast. He loves to have a good time. He loves everything about racing, victory, defeat. He loves everything about it. So I think he was very gracious to Charles, which was nice to see. However, quick interview with Christian Horner, the team principal at Red Bull, that man did not look deflated. He looked defeated. I'm assuming this was some freakish one off. Red Bull may not have the best car, but I'm still going to assume they fix whatever happened. And so both Perez and Max will be back again, finishing races and fighting for podiums. But for both cars to have a chance at being on the podium and then blow it because of reliability issues in the final couple laps, that may have killed their chances. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, I know it's a long season, but Mercedes came in third and fourth. We know they have proven reliability. We know they improved throughout the season. Ferrari is back. I think with this race, that may have doomed the Red Bull season. What do you think?
I think that they'll be okay. They have a very fast car, and we saw how fast they were in a straight line. And so that bodes well for certain circuits on the calendar. And Max in a bit of a slower car in this race was still right there with Leclerc for almost the entire race. I mean, Verstappen is clearly still the best driver on the grid. Leclerc obviously is exceptional. We know Hamilton is one of the greatest of all time, but Verstappen right now is just something else. And I have faith in Red Bull that they can decipher what the issues were in this race and fix them for future races. They have a good car. They just need to make sure they can finish the race, which unfortunately neither one of their drivers was able to do this week. But, if they figure that out, they'll be competing for wins every single race this season. And, Mercedes didn't look like they were as fast. So if that's the case, then they can definitely get themselves back up into the top.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if Red Bull fixes the problems, you know, as good a weekend, as good a race as Leclerc had, I don't think anybody still, and I said this last year, is in Max's league right now. Max is just simply a better driver than anyone on the grid. Leclerc will battle him, Sainz will battle him, Hamilton will still battle him, Russell. But when it comes to just sort of pure driving ability, I don't think anyone is in Max's league. So maybe you're right. I do think, boy, Perez looked good, but not great. And wow, and they're, no points in one race. That was pretty big. And Williams, I mean, we can no longer blame Claire Williams for Williams's woeful ways. They are just poor for years, poorly performing for years. And I thought with the big American private equity money, by now they would have righted things. I know we're kind of just sort of really in the early days of sort of a hard spending cap that's going to allow the poor teams a bit more competitiveness. But man, I have no hope for Williams in 2022. And 2023, maybe middle of the pack at absolute best.
Yeah, Williams was a little bit of a disappointment to start out this season. I hope they improve throughout the season. I will say Alex Albon looked great in his return to Formula One. I thought he did really, really well in qualifying, at least in that car. On the flip side, Latifi looked very poor, which is unfortunate since he's had quite a bit of time now to adjust to Formula One. He should be doing better than he did this weekend.
Yeah, a lot of folks make little snide remarks about some of the so-called daddy drivers or sponsor drivers. Nikita Mazepin was one, Stroll is one. Latifi's been around for years now with the same car, with the same team. And you're right, Albon came in and easily outperformed him. I mean, with the exception of there was a moment in the race where I think even Carlos Sainz said, "Is he trying to kill me?" Albon came wide out from the pits, if memory serves. Like he really got into Carlos's lane. But yeah, compared to what Latifi's doing, Albon is head and shoulders above him. And really, I think maybe Williams needs to start seriously thinking about, putting somebody else in that spot. I mean, Latifi's been there for years now. There's really no excuse. I mean, we look at Schumacher in his second year. What did he come in 11th? Now the Haas has proven, obviously, they're better now than the Williams, although that shouldn't be the case, I think. But yeah, I think probably no excuses for Latifi. And what about Aston Martin? Again, I know Vettel's out, I believe COVID, but Nico Hulkenberg's a fine replacement. In fact, I would say Nico might be a better driver now than Vettel, given this stage of Sebastian Vettel's career. But that Aston Martin still looks poor. What do you think?
Yeah, at the end of last season, I expected Aston to have a comeback season this year, and it looks like the worst car on the grid. I think it looks the best in terms of style and livery, but it is the slowest. It seems like it was very poor. Stroll basically didn't do a whole lot. Hulkenberg, he struggled pretty much all weekend. I like seeing him in F1, but in the worst car on the grid, there's not much you can do. So that was pretty tough to watch.
He got the call like on Wednesday, I think it was something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he flew out there and got in that car. But you're right, yeah, that's a poor car.
Yeah. So I don't know. I fully expected them to be right there with Alpine and Alpha and AlphaTauri, those middle pack teams, and they are well behind. They look like a team that will struggle to score any points this season, and from a really bad season in 2021, this is not shaping up to be good.
No, you're right. And, I liken the owner Stroll to Jerry Jones. He's willing to fire, hire, spend what it takes, do what it takes, but that's not actually a plan. Those are good traits, but you sort of need a plan. And I know he talks about having a plan, but I think my expectations are not as bad as yours. I think they'll, you know, Seb might get an eighth place here. Stroll might come in 10th one race, but I think it will be very few points this season. Another year of poor performance. So and you can't fire the owner, and you probably can't fire the owner's son. So I'm not exactly sure who is going to be gone from that team over the next year or two. Though it's funny you mentioned the Aston livery as being your favorite. Last year, Alpine's livery was my favorite, and this year, because of the BWT sponsorship, it's just like a hideous pink that I just hate, which is too bad. But do you think Mercedes is the favorite? They've won constructors championships every year, I believe, since the early 1900s. It now seems like, actually not, but it's they always win. They always have the best car. They always have the fastest, most reliable car. What do you think for this year based on preseason testing and one race?
Yeah. What is it, like, actually 8 years in a row, something like that for
Yep.
Mercedes? That's outrageous. I think maybe this isn't going out on a limb, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say they don't win the Constructors' Championship this season. I mean, from the looks of it, we know that Lewis and Mercedes get better as the season goes on, but they don't look like they have the dominant car this year, and they have in the last 8 years. So, I think Lewis, as good as he is, as great as he has been in his career, he is not in his prime anymore. Obviously, he's still going to be there every single race. You know, he got on the podium this week, and Russell is a great young driver, but it's hard to win without the best car.
Right.
And, you know, they might get up there on the podium or be competing for podiums every week, but with two other teams that are faster than you in Ferrari and Red Bull, that's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. As great as Lewis is, having the fastest, most reliable car for the past 8 years has covered up a lot of weaknesses. And as you said, he's not in the prime of his career anymore. Obviously, the Baku screw up last year cost him the championship. His starts aren't always the best. He's not as aggressive as I think he should be. He's wily, though. He knows when others like Max or Charles are going to do something aggressive and can use it against them. But at the end of the day, that sort of Aikido move only gets you so far, if they're going to hit you in the face. And if Ferrari can maintain this pace in a reliable car, if Red Bull can fix this reliability issues in their proven fast car, I think you're right. I mean, I think the Lewis George pairing is probably as good as the Charles Carlos pairing. So for top driver team with sort of Max maybe is the best driver, but Sergio not quite the equal. So I think you're right. I think for the first time, Red Bull just couldn't maintain that reliability, that pace all through last year. And so they came close to dethroning Mercedes, but just couldn't get it done. Maybe this is the year. So I think I'm going to go with you and say Mercedes does not repeat.
Yeah, I think if you look at this race, there were four cars well ahead of Mercedes, right? The issue comes down to the last two laps when the Red Bulls imploded. But if they don't, then that's four cars consistently faster than Mercedes. You know, you're going to have to hope for a lot of weird stuff to happen up at the front in order to win the race. So,
Yeah, and as competitive and fierce and consistent as Lewis is, he's now no longer in the fastest car, probably. And, you know, Valtteri Bottas played the role of second very well. He was never going to challenge Lewis. George will, which means there's some points that Lewis might normally have gotten under Valtteri Bottas as his teammate that he won't with Russell. So we could have a year where both Lewis doesn't win and Mercedes doesn't win. And we haven't seen that, like you said, in 8 years. Although I did see, there's a stat that's sort of making its way around Twitter that because Max didn't finish and Lewis came in third, Lewis is now 15 points over Max, which is more than any lead he held over Max in all of 2021, which I thought was a pretty amazing stat, actually.
yeah, I mean, what a season from Max last year. And, you know, I fully expect him to be back up there competing for it again this year. So,
Oh, yeah. Max had, I think, the best season I've seen any driver have ever last year. Well, maybe with Felipe Massa, where there was a legit shot of not winning the championship. I mean, God literally, came down and altered reality so Max could win that. He deserved to win it. I think we have to go back to when Lewis was it Felipe Massa many years ago. But even then, I thought it was a closer battle. Max to me was just head and shoulders above everyone last year. He was just insane. So he deserved that win, even though it was very controversial. So, something I'd like to do is rank the drivers. We'll just do top 10, maybe even keep score through this. Let me give you who my top 10 drivers were this week. And that doesn't mean where they finished, but who I think did the best race, given the car and the circumstances. And for me, number one will be Kevin Magnussen. I mean, the man was out. He was out of Formula One for a couple of years. Haas is a now a good car, but not a great car. And he battled all the way through and came in, what, fifth place? I mean, just shocking. So I'm going to go with Kevin. So you need to start thinking about your top 10 drivers. Next, I'm going with George Russell. He had to fight Lewis's teammate, the two Ferraris, the two Red Bulls. This is his first race with Mercedes, officially as a Mercedes driver. So I know Lewis came in third and George fourth, but I'm going with George next. Then I go with the winner, Charles. Charles had a great week and a great race. He did everything perfectly. He may have had the best car, but he did everything perfect. Next, I'm going with Zhu. This was his Guan Yu Zhu. It was his first race ever. Gasly did not finish, but he came in 10th. So, he got points. So I'm going with that. Then Hamilton, then Max, then Carlos, then our good buddy Valtteri Bottas. You know, that Alfa Romeo is not a good car, and it hasn't been a good car, and I'm not sure it ever will be a good car unless they sell out to Andretti, as we're hoping they will. But he had a good race, and he got points. So good on him. Next, I think 2022 is the year the legend of Yuki begins. Everyone had such high hopes for Yuki in his first season. He did not fulfill those hopes, but he did show some flashes of greatness. And in this race, he kind of had poor qualifying, not a great start, but he battled his way through into the points. And then finally, I'm going with Ocon. The Alpine is a fair car, nothing special, but he outraced Fernando, which is very hard to do, and he made it into the points. So those are my top 10, and I'm going to keep track of this and see which drivers we award the most points to over the year. What about you? I know I caught you off guard. Do you have a top 10 or at least a top 5?
Yeah, we'll start off here. I am a little bit surprised by your top driver, but I'm going to go with the people driver of the day, Leclerc. I mean, he was exceptional today, fought off every challenge that Verstappen threw at him, and was just far and away the best driver today. Next, I'm going to go with Verstappen. I know he had reliability issues and didn't finish the race, but the laps that he did do were very good. He challenged Leclerc the whole race. And I mean, he put in a shift. Unfortunately, his car died, but, he's great. Then I'm going to go with Magnussen. Like you said, spent a year out of Formula One, came back in a Haas, got P5. I mean, how incredible is that? That was awesome to see. I thought he looked great. He looked like Kevin Magnussen of old, and like he can continue to do that throughout the season, which is pretty exciting to see. Then I think it's a little harder for me. I'm actually going to give fourth to Bottas. I thought he ran a great race in an Alfa Romeo. I mean, what's the best that Alfa did in the last 2 seasons? I mean, P6 is pretty good. I know we have been frustrated with Bottas for a long time, playing second fiddle to Hamilton and not really competing as hard as he probably should have, but he had a great race this weekend. Then I think I'm going to go with Hamilton. He sat there all race, just did his thing. I mean, not in the fastest car, but, he's a solid veteran driver and ended up on the podium. I mean, he did everything right and got rewarded for it. Let's see. I think you brought up a good point with Joe. First ever race in F1. He looked good in the Alfa Romeo, was P10, so got a point. I mean, that's pretty solid for your first ever drive in F1. And then I think I'm also going to go with Russell. He did well, basically sat on Hamilton's tail the whole race. I mean, nothing special from him, but I mean, finishing top 4, that's a solid way to open your Mercedes bank account.
Right. Maybe, I mean, when he was with Williams all those years, it was always like great showing on Saturday and then poor on Sunday just because the Williams car was so poor. But who knows? Maybe his fortunes have changed. His qualifying wasn't the greatest, but his race was spot on.
Yeah, for sure. I think I have to put Signs up there. I don't think he had necessarily a great race, but another podium finisher and looked really solid in the Ferrari. Just couldn't keep pace with his teammate this weekend, but I fully expect them to have good battles throughout the season, him and Leclerc. And then let's see, that was 8,
That was
right? So I
eight.
have 2 more. Ooh, I think I'm gonna have to go Yuki and Mick at 9 and 10.
Nice. Mick.
I really liked Yuki's race. He did well. I know I'm leaving a few guys off of this list that I think performed really well, but Yuki, solid showing, P8, first race of the season. We said he had to step up this season. Otherwise, he was on the chopping block. This weekend, I think he really did. He put in a good shift. And then Mick, so close to points. I think he'll get there this season. The Haas looks like it can compete for points, which is exciting. And he put in some good battles with really good drivers. I mean, he was battling with Alonso a few times. I think he had some battles with Ocon and Bottas and Yuki. He was competing and was just off the pace there at the end. But that's really good to see from him.
Yeah, that's a good list. I think we're close, and I think it was especially good to see sort of this new era. FIA F1 talks about a new era because new regulations, spending cap. But seeing a lot of these younger drivers, Yuki, Joe, Mick, and is just in the second year, really working out there. Russell, so that was fun to see. One thing we started doing last year was sort of trying to award or place on the virtual podium a non-racer, a non-driver, any one or group or thing or things you think deserve to be on the virtual podium.
Yeah, that's a good question. Lots of fun stuff from this weekend. I'll stick with the Haas and Kevin Magnussen theme and say Kevin Magnussen's wife and baby playing with a little toy car in the garage was one of my favorite things to see this weekend. It was just good to see him back in F1 and his family enjoying being there.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, everyone loves Guenther. And so, I'm sure he's having a good weekend and really loving this results from this first one. For me, I'm going to put two up there. For starters, the folks who created these new regulations, I think the cars look a little clunkier, not as attractive, not as aggressive. And there are certain things like those barges, the wheel covers that I do not care for. But they wanted races to be more competitive. They wanted more overtakes, and we saw plenty in just this first race. And that, boy, I hope that Max Charles battle that we saw in this race continues. Max and Charles, Red Bull, Ferrari, all those overtakes. That was so much fun to watch. And Charles held his own, maybe better even. So that was great. And I don't know what you call them, the fire putter outer. I mean, Gasly sort of lost power and pulled off to the side. And the next thing you know, that car's on fire. And that dude was right on the scene and putting that fire out. So he deserves an award. I hope they do that. Okay, next segment, Across the Line. We introduced this last year. I'm going to have you explain it to the listeners. It's who we think will show up in the top 5 in the next race. I'll choose one, you'll choose 1 and 2, then I'll choose 2 and 3, and so forth. But once one of us has chosen a driver, he's off the table. And then we give points for that. Am I correct? I know you always explain this better.
Yes, exactly correct. So, yep, once a driver's taken, they're off the board. So, we each pick a top 5 and we'll have basically 10 different drivers taken. So, the points that we award, I think we're going to do 3 for exact position correct, and then 1 if the driver is in the top 5 but not in the position that we took them in.
And so we do this before the races and even before practice. And so for this race, I had Verstappen, Signs, so I would get 3 points because he did come in second place. Not only was I correct, but he came in second. Russell, I would get 1 point because he was in the top 5 but not in third. Perez, nothing. Ricardo, good lord, nothing. You you had Leclerc, good call. So you get 3 points. Norris, oof, not good. Hamilton, 3 more points because you had him in third and he came in third.
Yeah.
Gasly, no. Albon, no. So
Yeah.
you're ahead to me 6-4. So, but it's a long season. So you get to go first this week. Who do you have for Saudi Arabia?
Ooh, that's a good question because Saudi's such a fast track, and it looks like the Red Bulls are a little bit quicker than anybody else. Ooh, as long as their car doesn't break down, I'm gonna take Verstappen P1.
Oh, nice. That's who I want. Well, then I am going to take the old wily veteran Lewis Hamilton, number 1. And in second, I am going to steal one and take Charles Leclerc. So who do you have for second and third?
Ooh, very rude. Well, I'll take Signs in P2. He looked good this weekend, and in a fast Ferrari, he looks like he can do some damage. Oh man, let's see who else. I'll take George Russell in P3.
Ooh, good choice. Good choice. So for me, for 3 and 4, all Mercedes is gone, Ferrari's gone. You've got Max and Red Bull. But I'm not going to take Perez number 3. I am going to take, oof, who will I take? I'm going to take Gasly at 3 and Perez at 4.
Oh, nice. Good picks. Good picks. All right, I get picks 4 and 5 now. Oh goodness. Let's see. What cars were good this weekend? I think at P4, I'm gonna take Ocon. So see if that Alpine can get up into the top 5. And then in another P5 finish, I'm gonna take KMag.
Oh, nice. That's who I had for 5th place. Oh, that one that's tough. Then I'm going to keep with the theme of AlphaTauri and taking Yuki. Like I said, 2022 is the legend of Yuki.
Nice.
Nice. So Saudi, or for the rest of the season, any crazy prediction?
Ooh, crazy prediction. I think that, we only got one 1-2 finish last year, and it was a McLaren 1-2. We're starting off the season with a 1-2 in Ferrari. I think we're going to have plenty more 1-2 finishes this season. So I'm going to say, even though my across the line predictions don't have it, I'm going to do a 1-2 finish for Red Bull next week.
Wow. Wow. That's a good one. And it would be fun to see several 1-2 finishes. Last year was weird, given how well Mercedes and Red Bull did throughout the season, that there was just one, and it was McLaren. I don't have a crazy prediction for Saudi Arabia. I'm going to give 2 crazy predictions for the year. One is our good friend Valtteri Bottas. He will never be on the podium again. He's proven
Oh,
himself.
man.
I know. He has proven himself a fine, deserving mid-tier driver, and he'll do well in his current role at Alfa Romeo, and he'll definitely help his Chinese teammate, but I don't think he'll ever podium again. I have a second, and this is an awful one, and that is, even though it's 2022, COVID will have a significant impact on the driver standings in 2022.
Ooh. Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, son. I thought this was a good talk. I think that was a fun race, and I'm glad we got this first podcast in the books. Start of our second season. It's been fun. I want to thank our listeners to listening to everybody's most beloved father and son Formula One podcast. And we are out of here.
See ya. Thanks for listening.